Good morning, church. It's a good day to be a Hoosier, you know? It's a good day to be a Hoosier. How many of you guys stayed up and watched the whole game last night? Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. I was right there with you. I got to tell you, I loved watching the soon-to-be Heisman, best player in college football, praising God after the game, giving God the glory. That was awesome. I love to see that bold faith playing out there. And it was awesome. For those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Jonny Keith. I am the young adults minister here at Jerome. Love working with our young adults here. Love working in this church. Love being a part of it. I am also a fourth grade teacher at Eastern Elementary. I went to Eastern Elementary once upon a time. Graduated from Eastern in 2010. A couple years ago, as I was applying for the job and looking at the different opportunities there, I couldn't help but think about my time as an Eastern Comet, from kindergarten all the way through graduating, and what that meant for me, what that did for me. And something that kept coming to mind was just the support and the opportunities that I was given to be a leader from the time I was young all the way through high school, both through sports, in the classroom, and in clubs like FCA. And there was just all these opportunities and development that I had as a leader, and I'm just so thankful for that. So as I was thinking about, the theme for my classroom and how I wanted to continue to develop leaders at Eastern, I really was trying to find some symbolism there, and lions kept coming to mind. And I was given this poster of this lion. This is in my room, and I was like, yeah, that's it, for sure. That's what I want to do in my room. And so the idea of lions, I think, through a lot of different movies and stories, we see lions as strong. We see lions as leaders, right? In a lot of movies, the lions, like Lion King. I mean, there's so many lions that are leaders throughout stories that kids can relate to. And then the idea of the fact that a pride of lions is unstoppable. And this idea of having lions in my classroom, it just kept snowballing. And the idea of leaders in my classroom. So I came up with a list of expectations. I don't have class rules in my classroom. I have a list of expectations on what leaders do. And as I've talked about these expectations with my students, and I've talked about how these are things that leaders do, it's really created a great culture. In both years that I've been at Eastern, these have been special. And we're talking about working hard, respecting others, keep trying, show patience, show bravery, trust the process, and tell the truth. I think we can all agree that these are great attributes of a leader. If you think about a leader in your life, they're probably getting a lot of those things right. And what I love about this list is grades don't matter here. Success academically doesn't matter. You don't have to be good at sports to do these things. You don't have to be great at math. You don't have to have the skills necessarily required to be great at something, but you can still be a leader. And so I have students that follow these, even though they know sometimes, long division, not for me, but I can be a leader through it, and I love to see it. They have me as a teacher, so we figure out long division pretty quick, and they're fine with it, all right? But the idea of having leaders in my classroom that maybe they don't get the opportunities to be leaders anywhere else, that's always been important to me. And so when a student exemplifies all these attributes of a leader, we have what we call the Lion of the Week. They are very proud to be Lion of the Week. These are kids that followed those expectations well. Others were able to see those expectations, and I talk about it. I praise them for this. I'll say, hey, you're Lion of the Week this week. I saw Grace this week do all these things. And we go to that big poster that has all those expectations of leaders. And I say, I saw Grace do these things, right, this week. So she's our Lion of the Week. And they're pumped about it. We have stickers. We do a little thing. Like we celebrate it. But I think their favorite part about it is getting their picture taken in front of the lion, which, I haven't got my picture taken in front of the lion yet. Maybe I need to make that happen. But it's a cool picture, and they love to get up there, and they are happy to get this picture taken. I send it to their parents and say, hey, this is where I saw them being a leader this week. And we just try to develop that with them, and they really enjoy that. And so the lion theme in my classroom has kind of snowballed, and I love it. I love the idea of standing with lions, being leaders like lions, being strong like lions, and creating a pride of lions that is unstoppable. As I was finding decorations for my room, I wanted to come up with some Bible verses that had, we've got some other Lions of the Week here. Yeah, they were hyped about it too. I wanted to come up with some Bible verses that talked about lions. And when I found that there's 90 Bible verses in the Bible that talked about lions. There's a whole bunch in Revelation. Then there are several that reference danger from the enemy. And there are several that reference danger from the Lord. To give you a couple examples of these, in 1 Peter it says, be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. I like this one much better when it's talking about God. It says, as a lion growls, a great lion over its prey, not frightened or disturbed, the Lord Almighty will come down to battle on Mount Zion. The Lord Almighty will shield Jerusalem. Again, just symbolism of the power of a lion, the confidence of a lion, leadership of a lion. I think the most common story that we know about in the Bible is Daniel in the lion's den, right? We've seen that. We were talking about VeggieTales a little bit ago, and some of the different, cartoons that we've seen of Daniel in the lion's den. We've heard this story since we were little kids, right? Daniel in the lion's den, pretty popular story. But as I was preparing the sermon over the last few months, I learned that the story of Daniel in the lion's den starts long before he gets to that moment. So if you got your Bibles, go ahead and open up to Daniel chapter 1. We're going to kind of get the origin story of Daniel as well as a couple other leaders that get developed in this book. We're going to start in verse 3. It says, then the king ordered Ashpenaz, chief of his court officials, to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family and the nobility. Verse 4, young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve the king's palace. He was to teach them the language and literature of the Babylonians. The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine for the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that, they were to enter the king's service. Verse 6, among those were some from Judah: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The chief official gave them new names. To Daniel, the name Belteshazzar. To Hananiah, Shadrach. To Mishael, Meshach. And to Azariah, Abednego. Now, I don't know if I just forgotten it over time, but when I started looking into the sermon, it was a great reminder to see that Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were buddies. Two iconic Bible stories, and we're going to get into both of them today. But those guys actually started out together. They were developed, and they grew together. And in fact, in verse 1, there's this story about how they believe that they should be eating something and drinking something different than what everybody else is doing. And they kind of bond together and stand up for themselves, and it works out pretty well for them in chapter 1. But we're going to go ahead and jump to chapter 2. We're going to talk about Nebuchadnezzar. There's been a lot of babies born in this church over the last few years. I don't remember hearing any Nebuchadnezzars. I don't remember hearing that name come around anytime soon. But before we get to this story that we know is coming, I want to talk about our characters here real quick. We saw there in Daniel 1, this verse in verse 4, it says, young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. The Bible's not a picture book. We don't know exactly what things look like. But today we have AI. And so we're able to kind of plug some things in, and AI can kind of give us a picture of what it would look like. So if you plug Daniel 1, verse 4, into artificial intelligence, this is most likely what these men look like here. All right? So I want you to picture these four as we move through the rest of this story. Again, we're talking about lions. Remember that. All right. So if you're with me in chapter 2, we're talking about King Nebuchadnezzar. We're going to find out real quick why nobody names their kid Nebuchadnezzar. We're going to look in verse 1 there. It says, in the second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His mind was troubled, and he could not sleep. So the king summoned the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, astrologers to tell him what he had dreamed. When they came in and stood before the king, he said, I have had a dream that troubles me, and I want to know what it means. He goes on to say in verse 5, this is what I have firmly decided. If you do not tell me what my dream was, and interpret it, I will have you cut into pieces and your houses turned to piles of rubble. But if you tell me the dream and explain it, you will receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. So, tell me the dream and interpret it for me. This king, this supposed leader, he's not necessarily in rational thought here. Basically, he says, I've had some crazy dreams. I want you to tell me what I dreamed. I want you to tell me what that dream meant, and if you don't, I'm going to kill you. This is obviously bad. This is not rational thought. King Nebuchadnezzar is not operating on rational thought. Here we go down to verse 11. The people are like, what the king asks is too difficult. No one can reveal it to the king except the gods, and they do not live amongst humans. The king does not like that answer. So this made the king so angry and furious that he ordered the execution of all wise men of Babylon. So the decree was issued to put the wise men to death, and men were sent to look for Daniel and his friends to put them to death. Pretty big obstacle for our guys here. They're in a situation that is ridiculous. Being able to interpret a dream that you haven't even heard yet, not something that they can possibly do. So let's look at what Daniel does. In critical moments like this, leaders step up and they lead, and that's what Daniel does. Daniel returned to his house and explained the matters to his friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Verse 18 says, he urged them to plead for mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that he and his friends might not be executed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. During the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven. Fast forward to verse 27 when he gets to King Nebuchadnezzar. He said, no wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain to the king the mystery he has asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in days to come. Your dream and the visions that pass through your mind as you were lying in the bed are these. He goes on to interpret this dream that he has never heard about. If we look how Daniel managed leading through the situation, first thing he did here was he urged his guys to go pray for mercy. When it was revealed, he praised God for revealing the dream. When he goes and talks to King Nebuchadnezzar, he gave God the glory while interpreting. In my opinion, this is great leadership. This is great leadership. He ends up getting placed in a high position because King Nebuchadnezzar is so pleased with the way that he led through that situation. Him and his friends get to keep their lives. This is good, obviously. I mean, Daniel, line of the week, if he was in my classroom that week, for sure. Keeping us all alive, he's going to be line of the week. So we hope that King Nebuchadnezzar has learned his lesson. Hey, listen, Daniel's God, the God of Daniel, God in heaven, he's doing great things. But King Nebuchadnezzar, he believes that he is even greater than that. So he goes and he builds this statue. We're looking at chapter 3, verse 1 right now. King Nebuchadnezzar still leading very poorly and still making irrational decisions. It says right there, King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide and set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Now, I'm a math guy, all right? So whenever the Bible gives us numbers, I got to do a little math. And I was able to find out that in modern terms, if we were to put a price on a solid gold statue that fit the dimensions that King Nebuchadnezzar put together back there, it would be about $300 billion. This is not a rational thing to do here. This is a ridiculous thing that this king is putting on his people. And I did a little bit of research, and I found that, back in the day, they would actually make wooden statues and then plate them with gold to make them look like solid gold statues. More than likely, that's what happened here. So if you say the statue fit this description and was made of wood, but then plated with gold, we're still looking at about $100 million. And that's ridiculous. I think we would be pretty upset if our government put together a $100 million statue right there in the center of Indianapolis. That would not be something we would be happy that our tax dollars were going to. So we're not making rational decisions yet again, and believe it or not, it's going to get worse. He then summons all of the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincial officers to come to the dedication of the image he had set up. Most likely, that includes Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel, who's put in a high position at this point. As soon as you hear the sound, this is verse 5, as soon as you hear the sound of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. So we've made this ridiculous statue Now we're going to force everyone to worship the statue. And if you don't, I'm going to kill you. This is bad, obviously. King Nebuchadnezzar is not making rational decisions. He's putting good leaders in a hard situation where they have to choose between what's right and wrong or face dangerous consequences. But this is not the first bad situation that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego have been in. The chapter before this, they're with Daniel with this whole dream scenario. They see how Daniel led through that scenario. They followed Daniel's lead by praying, by praising God, by giving glory to God. They're not going to change now. These men are also going to lead through this situation. Verse 12, it says, "But there are some Jews whom you may have set over affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your majesty. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you have set up." They understood the ramifications. They are fully aware that King Nebuchadnezzar does not make rational decisions. This is not a decision of, oh yeah, or what? They know what. They know what lies ahead if they don't follow the direction of this crazy king. They stick to their guns though, and I absolutely love what we see down here in verse 16. In fact, this is my favorite part of the entire story. We look at verse 16. It says, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, 'King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter.'" Which at that point, I don't know which one of them is talking, but I got to think the other two are just like, you heard him. We go on, it says, "If we are thrown into that blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from it, your majesty. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." Bold faith. Bold faith. They know what lies ahead of them. They refuse to back down from their faith. That's leadership. That is leadership. You know, we see leadership like this from Jesus. He lives through his life. He goes through the Gospels. He knows what lies ahead. And he even gets to that point where he asks God for something else and God says no. Again, I'm going to look at this verse down here. "But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image you have set before us." These three men made the decision that they were going to be more comfortable in a fiery furnace than they were in a world where they had to bow down to something that was not their God. So commendable. So commendable. King Nebuchadnezzar flies off the handle. He gets all upset, and he tells them to go make the furnace 7 times hotter. He's working on anger right now. These irrational thoughts are just keep building. Now let's make the furnace 7 times hotter. Tie him up and throw him in there. We know what happens in the story. And actually, before we get there, the men that carried Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and threw them in the furnace, they died because the flames were so intense. This was not even a rational furnace at this point. He is completely off the handle. But we know what happens. The stage is set in this furnace. The spotlight is on this furnace. The king is watching. All of these other important people, all these leaders that he gathered together, they're watching. Everybody is ready to see these men burn alive. Again, bold faith. Bold faith gives God a spotlight to do bold work. Hop over to verse 24. It says, "King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, 'Weren't there 3 men that we tied up and threw in that fire?' They replied, 'Certainly, your majesty.' He said, 'Look, I see 4 men walking around the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out here.' Verse 28, then Nebuchadnezzar says, 'Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent an angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives than serve or worship any god except their own.'" Leadership. That bold faith gave God a spotlight to do bold work. And now we have an irrational king praising the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These 3 men have now led a king to the feet of God. this line that he says. They trusted in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except for their own God. That's coming from the same guy that just wrote their death sentence. Bold faith. 3 lines of the week right there, big time. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. Good work, guys. So let's check back in with Daniel. We're getting to Daniel in the lion's den. No doubt about it, at this point, Daniel has heard about this story, right? Like, he knows exactly what happened with the whole dream situation where God revealed the dream, revealed the vision. He was able to help his team get out of that. He led through that. He knows what happened in the furnace, whether he was there, whether Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego told him himself, or whether we're just traveled through Babylon. I guarantee Daniel heard about the furnace situation. Daniel has been bold in his faith. He's been around other men, other lions that are bold in their faith. Daniel's locked in. I want to be that locked in. I want to be able to trust God so well that every time I go through these trials in my life, I'm standing bold. I'm ready to give God a spotlight, then back down. I want to be that locked in. And as Daniel moves forward, he's been given leadership positions. There are people that are following Daniel right now. He has a very high position in Babylon. There are still people, though, that don't like him. There are people that want to see him fail. They want to see him gone. And if we hop over here in Daniel 6, verse 5, it says, "We will never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel unless it has something to do with his God." I want to be in that position where people recognize, hey, this man Jonny is doing so many good things that the only way that we can get him in trouble is if we have to make him defy his God. What a great position to be in as a leader. So they come up with this plan. King Nebuchadnezzar, he's no longer running the show into the ground here. We've got King Darius that's in line next. He knows all about Daniel, I'm sure. And so he's also a king back in the day, so he's like full of himself. And so these guys that want to get rid of Daniel, they come to him and they say, hey, King Darius, let's come up with this new decree. Anyone who prays to any god or human other than King Darius during the next 30 days shall be thrown into the lion's den. King Darius is like, sounds great. I'm the greatest. Let's sign it. Let's make it a rule. I like it. Everybody should be praising me. I'm the king, right? I want you guys to know that the lion's den is an extremely real threat. I think there's some debates out there that say, hey, lions don't live in dens. What are we talking about here? This is not a true story in the Bible. Well, let me tell you something. Did a little research on this. And about 100 years before we get to Daniel, there's this Assyrian king. His name is and he would capture lions, then release them in order to hunt them. In fact, he would send out his people, and they would go and they would trap these lions, I'm sure for a pretty penny, bring them back, place them in a den or some kind of captivity, and then starve them so that they were weak. And they would later release the lions, and mighty king, that guy, would then go and hunt these starving, dying lions. Kill a lion and say, look how great I am. I just killed a lion. I'm sure this became some kind of an elite thing to do, right? Very rich man or powerful people would get the shot at these lions, and I'm confident that rush or that power move did not stop when he died and that this lived on. So it makes total sense for there to be a den of lions in Daniel's time in Babylon. And people know that this is happening. I want to remind you that those aren't just lions chilling. Those are starving lions. They are hungry. So when this decree comes out, Daniel knows this is a real threat. This is a real threat. And I love it in verse 10. Honestly, this part makes me think about my wife. If you went and told my wife she couldn't do something, you might as well just set a timer to see how fast she goes and does exactly that you said she could not do. Verse 10 says, when Daniel heard that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened toward Jerusalem, and 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to God, just as he had done before. Did not change a single thing. Did not change a single thing. He heard this rule, thought, you know what? Doesn't line up with what I believe in. I'm not going to take 30 days off. I'm sure there were people following Daniel. Again, he's in a higher position, right? There's a lot of people that know Daniel, that know his story. There's a lot of people that see Daniel, and they hear about this decree, and they're probably thinking, man, I wonder what Daniel's going to do. Like, I've really been buying into this whole God thing he keeps talking about. I want to follow him, but what's he going to do now? I hope he just takes 30 days off. What's just 30 days? What's a month? Take a month off. Don't pray for a month, Daniel. Keep your life. Keep leading. Take 30 days off. Daniel was more comfortable in a den of lions than he was not praying to his God for 30 days. More comfortable in a den of lions. I have so much respect for that. What's awesome about this story is that throughout Daniel's life, he's been leading so many people towards God, that there's so many people that are, again, watching to see what happens. Even the king is unclear about what's going to happen. The guy that signs his death warrant is still wondering if Daniel's God's going to make this happen. We look at verse 16. It says, so the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, may your God whom you serve continually rescue you. A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring and with the rings of his nobles, so that Daniel's situation might not be changed. Then the king returned to his place and spent the night without eating and without any entertainment being brought to him, and he could not sleep. At the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. When he came to the den, he called to Daniel in an anguished voice, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions? This is the same king that just signed his death certificate. I don't know how hard it is to get a king to run. I imagine pretty tough. It says he hurried to the lion's den to see if Daniel was alive. He knew, because of the way Daniel has lived his life to this point, he knew that there was a shot, there was a real chance that Daniel's God delivered him from this situation again. We have a king following a leader who is following God. Daniel answered, may the king live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the mouths of lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight, nor have I ever done any wrong before you, your majesty. The king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the lion's den. Fast forward over here to verse 25. It said, may you prosper greatly. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom, people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. For he is the living God and endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed, and his dominion will have no end. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. Those words are coming from a king who just sent somebody to die because they weren't worshiping him. That king has followed Daniel's lead. Bold faith gives us spotlight to do bold work. And yet again, Daniel's bold faith gave us spotlight where we have kings and we have other leaders and we have all these people that were following Daniel in the first place see this terrible situation. What is he going to do? Daniel chooses to have bold faith, gives God a bold spotlight. Now we have another king falling in line to the king, to the God of the universe. I was inspired to do this sermon this summer at CIY. Awesome experience up at Holland, Michigan. Had a great time with you guys. Yeah, they're all like, my picture's up there. Listen, it was awesome to sit back and watch this group worship, to watch them talk about their faith, to see them be bold in their faith, whether it be in small group or in the group sessions or even just during the main worship sessions there. It was awesome to stand with all of these lions here. And I just can't help but think of as you guys go forward and just the opportunities that you have to be leaders at school, in your own youth group, in lives and jobs, everywhere that you go. I just want you to remember what the lions are like. Lions are strong. Lions are leaders. And a pride of lions is unstoppable. Look at the impact of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Kings turning to God. We're not able to know how many people followed those leaders, followed those people who were bold in their faith. I just want to encourage everybody in here, youth group and everybody else. I'm thankful that we have leaders in this church. There's a lot of lions in here. Jacob Burnley, you're a lion, brother. All right? Mackenzie, you're a lion. I saw it this summer. There's so many lions in this room. There's great leaders in this church and in our communities even. I just want to encourage you guys to go and follow those bold Christians. Follow them. See what they're doing. Follow them. They're following Jesus. All right? Follow bold Christians. Be a bold Christians. Stand with lions. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your word. Thank you so much for sending us the greatest leader of all time in Jesus, Lord. I pray that you'll encourage us, inspire us continually to learn from him, to follow him, and to find others that are doing the same. Thank you so much for putting lions in my life that I can follow, that I can learn from, that I can grow with. God, let us be a church that makes an impact for you. We love you. Amen.